Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're kicking off a brand new series called Myth vs. Reality. And we're starting with one of the most famous images in American history, the Pilgrims and the first Thanksgiving. You know the picture I'm talking about. It's on every elementary school. Whoa, a long, friendly table, pilgrims in their hats, Native Americans looking peaceful. And everyone is just getting along perfectly. It's a neat, tidy origin story where the future looks bright. But the real story? It's a lot messier and way more interesting. That famous meal in 1621 wasn't the start of a national holiday. It was a tense, practical moment caught in a much larger struggle for survival and power. So, let's rewind. The Pilgrims landed in 1620. Showing up in a place they didn't understand. At the worst possible time of year, their first winter in Plymouth wasn't just hard. It was an absolute catastrophe. Sickness tore through the colony. Food was dangerously scarce, and their shelters were barely holding up. By the time spring finally arrived, nearly half of the colonists were dead. So when we talk about this Thanksgiving, the first thing to remember is this. They weren't celebrating comfort. They were celebrating the fact that they were still alive at all. Now, here's where the myth gets it really wrong. It paints the Wampanoag people as friendly side characters who just pop in to help the newcomers succeed. In reality, the Wampanoag were a powerful confederation with their own complex politics, their own rivalries, and their own survival to worry about. They weren't meeting the English in some untouched paradise. For years before the Pilgrims arrived, the entire region had been devastated by diseases brought by earlier European contact. This changed everything. This means any alliance wasn't about good vibes. It was about cold, hard strategy. The Pilgrims desperately needed help. They needed local knowledge, food, and a way to avoid getting wiped out. Meanwhile, the Wampanoag, led by their Sachem Massasoit, had their own reasons to consider an alliance. They had rivals, like the powerful Narragansett tribe, and teaming up with newcomers who had firearms could completely change the game. This is why the famous cooperation part of the story is true, just not in the way we usually hear it. Yes, there was help. People like Tisquantum, often called Squanto, were absolutely crucial as translators and guides. But he was important because both sides were trying to manage risk and uncertainty. Translation wasn't just about words, it was high-stakes diplomacy. Okay, so let's talk about the meal itself. In the fall of 1621, after a decent harvest, the Plymouth colonists did hold a multi-day gathering. For one thing, the Wampanoag who showed up weren't just a few guests. There were likely more of them than there were English colonists. And that detail changes the entire feeling of the event. It suggests this wasn't just the colonists throwing a party. It was a major public meeting between two groups. And the food, forget the modern menu. They ate what was available: deer, fish, wild birds, corn, and whatever else they could gather. The point wasn't to have a perfect feast. It was to prove that the settlement had finally reached a moment of stability. But here's the most important piece of the puzzle. This gathering was a signal. In a world where alliances meant life or death, a shared public event sent a message of trust, strength, and mutual benefit. It told everyone watching, we are not alone. We have partners. That really mattered when your neighbors were watching your every move. So why do we even call it Thanksgiving? Well, in their culture, A Thanksgiving was often a religious day of prayer and fasting, not a huge feast. The modern holiday we celebrate was created centuries later, shaped by politics and the need for a national story. And that's the key. The first Thanksgiving story became so famous because it was useful. Nations don't just run on laws. They run on shared stories. And this one has it all: hardship, survival, cooperation, and a hopeful beginning. But myths usually crop out what happens next. The cooperation didn't last. The longer story is one of rising tension over land, broken promises, and unstoppable English expansion. That famous meal became a symbol of harmony, even as history moved toward a future where that harmony was impossible to maintain. So what was the reality? The 1621 gathering was real, but it wasn't a magical friendship. It was a fragile, unstable partnership born from desperation and political advantage. It worked for a little while, and in that short window, it helped the Plymouth colony survive. If you want a better image, picture this: two groups, watching each other carefully. Both know a deal could be useful, and both know it could break at any moment. That's the first Thanksgiving without the filter. Not a fairy tale, but a fragile truce. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more myths versus reality. See you in the next one.